Welcome to Catalytic Leadership, the podcast designed to help leaders intentionally grow and thrive. Here is your host, author, and leadership and executive coach, Dr. William Attaway.
Hey, it's William, and welcome to today's episode of the Catalytic Leadership Podcast. Each week, we tackle a topic related to the field of leadership. My goal is to ensure that you have actionable steps you can take from each episode to grow in your own leadership. I believe, like Craig Rochelle has said many times, that when a leader gets better, everybody benefits. Your team, your department, your customers, your clients, your spouse, your kids, everybody. Each week, we spotlight leaders from a variety of fields, locations, and organizations. My goal is for you to see that leaders can be catalytic no matter where they are or what they lead. I draw inspiration from the stories and journeys of these leaders, and I hear from many of you that you do too. Let's jump in to today's interview. It is such an honor and a joy today to have Dave Molenda on the podcast. Dave is the founder of Positive Polarity and grew his startup business into a $10 million company before selling it. He now passes the principles of his success onto his clients so that they too can succeed and grow. Dave is also a #1 Amazon bestseller of the book Growing on Purpose, the formula to strengthen your team and improve your customer experience. In his book, Dave brings together extensive business experience to show readers how to combine team strength, achieved through intentional communication, and positive, individualized customer experiences to achieve a fully engaged business. Dave, thanks so much for being on the show today.
Oh my gosh, can you travel with me and do that each time I speak? Because that was like the best I've ever heard in my whole life. I'm honored to be here, William. Good to see you.
Dave, I had the honor to be on your show earlier this year, and I got to know you, and I couldn't wait for you to be a guest on mine because I think there's so much you're going to bring to this conversation that's going to benefit our listeners. I would love for you to share some of your story with our listeners, particularly around your journey and your development as a leader. How did you get started?
Well, I tell you, it's interesting, William. I probably got started like most people where I wasn't really looking for it. It just kind of showed up one day. I mean, I started a company where it was just me. And so when it's just me, it was super easy to lead, right? Because, I'm leading myself. So that was pretty easy. But as we started to grow and added my first member on the team and then grew from there, and we ended up, before I sold it, we had 22 people on our team.
Wow.
And like you said, we were doing $10 million of annual sales, and it wasn't anything of what I expected it to be, and I think the leadership journey was more, for me, it happened by mistake. I didn't have this overwhelming desire to do it. I did have a desire to be an entrepreneur, for my whole life. That's what I wanted. I wanted to run and own a business. So, I always encourage people, if it's not like, fireworks and, all these outward signs, it's okay. It's really what's going on the inside. And I always ask the people that are following you or that you're leading, if I'm doing a good job. And when they say I'm doing a good job, then I kind of, that's my, positive spot right there. That's where I enjoy, spending my time. So it wasn't I wish I had these great epiphanies for you, William. I wish there was, a voice from above that said, you shall lead, like Moses had or whatever. I just didn't have that. But you know what? I'm seeing that more and more with people, the more that I have people on my podcast from around the world like you're doing. It's just, it's everybody's different. So I just encourage everybody that's watching or listening today to really embrace wherever you're at. You don't have to be like anyone else, and you're in a great spot right where you're at.
That's so insightful, and I think so relatable, Dave, because I too didn't get a voice from heaven saying lead. Right? It didn't happen that way.
I was hoping for that. Would have been awesome, right? Because then it makes life a lot easier for you, and you don't have to do anything but follow that voice. But
Yeah.
For most of us, it probably doesn't happen that way. So if it does happen that way, definitely let William know, because he'd want you on the guest on his podcast.
The
So
very
we can
next
all learn from
slot.
you.
That's right.
For sure. Absolutely.
So you've led in different contexts, and you've
Yeah.
observed leaders in so many different ways. How would you define leadership, Dave?
Yeah, it's just, for me, it's really easy if you are able to help others be their best. I mean, I woke up every day. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to help. If I help my team be the best that they could be, then they made the customer the best that they could be. I mean, it's just this awesome circle, and so that's really why I wrote my book, Growing on Purpose, because there are so many people that grow by mistake. They don't even know that they're doing it. And that's why I love the podcast that you're, investing in right now, is for that intentionality, because, for people, whether I'm leading my family, whether I'm leading a group at church, whether I'm leading a company, whatever you're leading, you really, for me personally, it's just like, I am outward looking to make sure that they're doing their best. And if they are doing their best, then, Patton said, if a man does his best, what else is there? If they're doing their best, what else is there? So that, to me, it might be simple. If you Google leadership, you get like 6 billion ideas, right? So I just try to keep it as simple as I can. As I just look around, and if other people that I'm leading are doing good and they're at their best, to me, that's success right there.
That's good. You've written extensively about strengthening teams.
Correct. Yep.
What are some simple ways that a leader can intentionally strengthen a team?
Well, I tell you, it's interesting, William. We think what I need, like if we were both on a team, and if I happen to be the leader, just for the sake of the conversation, and I need something to improve my experience on my team, strengthen myself, I make the assumption that you must need the exact same thing. So let's just say that I need positive words of encouragement. I need to be visible from the team. I need that exterior, positive reinforcement. And so if I need that, and then I think, well, William needs that, so then I go ahead and give you that, you might not need that. Maybe you are an introvert and that doesn't really bode well with you. Maybe your personality is such where you like to work behind the scenes and you're not really into that public praise. So for me personally, the best way to strengthen a team is to understand that they're all different. And the best way that we talk about in the book, and we use extensively, is the personality profile, disc. Because everybody's different, and I'm not smart enough to know what you need. So I say, hey, what do you need to strengthen yourself? And you're like, I don't know, fruits and vegetables. I mean, we don't know, right? So we kind of come up with some kind of a hybrid idea of some of our guesses and some of what we learned. It's way easier to just assess a personality, invest a couple $100 and about 15 to 20 minutes of your time, and out comes this fantastic information, 30, 40 pages about you. And now all of a sudden, if I have a couple people on my team, now I understand the difference between William and Joe. They each need something different. So I think the best way is to assess your team some way, some shape or form. That, to me, is the best place to start.
You know what I love about that is that you see people, when you do that, you see them as individuals. You see them as people, 3D people, not just cogs in a machine that's focused on getting things done.
Right.
You're focusing on the people.
Right.
I believe that when you build up people like that, when you pour into them and invest in them and help them to learn about themselves and you learn about them, that creates conversations that causes your team members to lean in.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially, unfortunately, I saw the latest from Gallup, and usually was 1 in 3 are engaged, and now it's dropped to 1 in 4. which basically means 3 out of 4 people in your company, whoever's listening, 3 out of 4 people statistically, I'm open to the fact that you could be an anomaly, but 3 out of 4 people on your team are not engaged.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that comes back to the leader. How do I engage my team? Well, each person needs to be engaged in a different way. And to what you just said, William, is we want people to lean in. We want them to feel part of it. And they need to feel part of it because they matter in a way. And there's a difference, connection that I have with each person on my team. When I had my team, everybody, we all ran assessments on them. And so I knew how to communicate with them. I knew how to manage them. I knew how to lead them. And think about that from their perspective. They absolutely loved it because I think of it as speaking different languages. I don't know how long you and I would have had a successful conversation today if I would have started in a different language.
Sure. Right?
You'd have been like, Dave, stop. Dave, stop. And I just kept on going, right? And then I ask you a question and you don't even know the question, right? But that's how it is with our personalities. So often we have different languages, we speak differently, we communicate differently, and everybody's teams are made up of all these personalities. And why we think we can just lead one way, just communicate one way, that's the difference between the boss and the leader, right? The old boss was follow the way, just do it because I tell you to do it. Do it this way. Don't even question me. And that's just not how that works anymore.
That's so true. And I think, especially in this post-COVID world, we're seeing that more and more in a very transparent way. And if people don't adapt, if leaders don't adapt, they're going to find themselves, antiquated.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you want to be like Kodak or Blockbuster, Sears, Kmart, all those companies that were huge giants back in the day, and they didn't acclimate, then that's fine. I mean, there's no harm, but you kind of get to see what the future looks like for you there. So
absolutely. You've written about the customer's experience. And I think, again, particularly on this side of COVID, the importance of the customer's experience has never been clearer. How can leaders lean into that and do that in an economical way?
Yeah, I tell you 2 words that nobody's going to agree with. So I'll just put it out there right now. We can get the controversy right out of the gates. I just think ask them. Ask your customer. I mean, I'm not smart enough to know what you need because, again, what you need is going to be different than what your spouse needs or your business partner or the customer down the street. So I'm trying to find ways to ask the people in front of me when I'm sitting there, what is it that you need? How can we help? How could we improve this experience? And whether it's in person asking, whether it's polling people, but again, I wish there was one thing that say, hey, if you do this, and then everything would be great, right? The magic bullet, but we don't have that. And we're all consumers as well. Yeah. So you probably need something different than I do. Like if you're going to go buy a car, it's a prime example. If you're going to go buy a car, you might be the kind that goes in Consumer Reports, Car and Driver magazine, scours the internet, and then goes to 4 different dealers, and again, there's nothing wrong with any of that. For me personally, the last car that I bought, I drove into the lot. I knew I needed a car and I picked it out and didn't really haggle and just bought the car and drove it home. And I knew that day because of circumstances, I knew that I was going to needed a car. But look at the difference between you and me. And again, these are all potential, not even accurate. But for you, if it took you, I had a guy in one of my trainings. It took him he was 3 years into a search for a minivan, and he still hadn't pulled the trigger.
Whoa. I
know, exactly. I'm like, dude, your kid's going to be grown by the time you need this minivan. So I don't know, what are you waiting for, right? But that's how, and again, that's their personality, and that comes out. So customers have different ways that they buy. And I'm not, again, I can read some of it, but I just want to ask them. I ask a series of questions that really show up to understand what their process of buying is. And what they need, what their experience is, and and then I do my best to match what it is that they ask for.
When to ask a question like that, to get an answer that's honest requires trust.
Yep, absolutely.
They have to trust that you actually care about the answer.
Right.
They have to trust that you might actually do something with the answer.
Right. Yep.
How important do you think trust is in the workplace?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's huge. Without trust, I personally think without trust, there's no engagement. So those 3 out of 4 people right now that aren't engaged, a lot of it is because they don't trust their leaders. The chances in the statistics show that if you don't trust your leaders, the chances of you being engaged in your job are 1 in 12. Okay. It goes to 1 in 6 if you do trust your leaders.
Wow.
So there's a huge difference right there. I mean, that's that. And trust, that's the other thing that's unique. And I hate to keep talking about DISC. Each personality trusts something different, William. So you might trust one thing in the workplace, and I might trust something totally different. And that's where, if we don't have that, like for instance, an engineer, that engineer type brain, they trust expertise. They want their leaders to be, they want them to be experts in their industry. They want them to know everything about the industry, and they're not going to trust them until they have that connection. Now, a different person, a people person like me, I'm not that interested in that expertise. I want somebody to be open. So if I share with somebody something and I ask a question, I'm expecting some resemblance of openness there. Like when I ask somebody, what'd you do this weekend? They go, not much. I mean, there's really, that's not really the answer that I'm looking for, right? I'm looking for, hey, we did this, we had fun with this, we went out to this restaurant, we had a great time, we listened to some music. That's what I'm looking for. So people trust different things, and that's what's so unique about learning more about different personality styles, is they end up, you can determine where they fall, and then you can start to determine what things they trust.
That's so good. Learning your wiring, discovering your wiring as a leader, and then discovering the wiring of those you lead, I think is absolutely critical. When I first took the DISC so many years ago now, and discovered I'm a high C. Like I don't have any other letters. I'm really just a C.
Oh, that's why we're so opposite. There you go. See, you're the guy. Right? But you know what? You smile. So a lot of C's don't smile. So thanks for at least busting that myth a little bit.
The beauty of discovering so much of what I learned, it was the aha. That's why. Right. That's why I think and do and lead and behave that way.
Right.
Imagine if you discovered that for your team, like what you're talking about. Imagine if you discovered for each one, oh, that's why when I say this, they don't respond. Right. Oh, that's why when I say this, they do.
Absolutely. Didn't we used to think, I mean, I don't know about you in the selling world, but when I was selling in earlier in my career, I always thought that people that needed to think it over, they needed to research it. I always thought that they were just putting stalls and objections in front of me. Yeah. And so then I'm fighting even harder. And then I learned this about DISC. And then to your point, I realized, oh my gosh, they're different. They actually need time to process this. There's really not a very effective way that I'm going to be able to circumvent that and try and get them to sign right then and there. So same way with leaders, if you walk in to your team and say, hey, today we're going to do a massive shift in something, certain people like me would be like, cool, let's do it. All right. There'd be other people, maybe even for you, that might be a little bit, as a high C, you might have, you need to process that a little bit. So I'm already on board. I'm already moving forward. And again, I'm not better than you. You're not better than me. It's just we process information different, right?
Exactly.
And you're still back on, oh my gosh, what's going on here?
Yeah,
You know,
right.
and the rest of the team is already 3 steps in. And so that's where, if we could, we want to preempt people. We want to let them know ahead of time, hey, this is coming down the pike. Be prepared for it. Let me know how I can help. It's going to be a good experience. If you preempt that, as opposed to walk in to a meeting and say, hey, we're changing directions. And that's that. So it just really, the more you know your people, for all the leaders listening, the more success that you're going to have.
So true. In my decades of leadership, and I know in yours, you've had some challenges. Like I've had some
none.
No,
Come on. No,
easy,
wait a minute here. Wait a minute here. Challenge. What are you talking about challenges, dude? This is the wrong podcast then. Sorry.
Leadership is easy.
I just had to do that.
That was the title of this episode. Leadership is easy with Dave.
Exactly. Take this one simple pill and you'll do it for $39.95. But wait, there's more. Sorry. I had to have some fun there. So
I love it. I love it. Unfortunately, challenges are part of leadership.
Absolutely.
And we don't always see them coming. Sometimes they hit us blindsided.
Right.
And sometimes we do. Sometimes we see them and they're approaching fast. What has been one of your greatest challenges in your leadership?
For me personally, it goes back to what I said. I made the mistake of thinking everybody wanted to be led the same way.
Yeah.
As I'm building the team, let's see, how can I say this? So I'm open. I'm an open person. I want to talk openly about my life. I want to talk openly about my successes and my failures.
Yeah.
Well, if I hire somebody and they're not open, okay, that's a problem. So again, back to my spot, I say, hey, what'd you do this weekend? Or they say to me, what'd you do this weekend? And I go, oh my gosh, you wouldn't believe it. Friday night, we found the best fish fry for the Midwesterners listening. And then Saturday, we found a great farmer's market. Saturday afternoon, and I go through this whole litany of this weekend because I'm being open. Yeah. Because I want to connect, right? As a leader, I want to connect with my people. Then I say, hey, William, what did you do? And you go, not much.
Right.
And it's done, right? I mean, there's such a disconnect there. And I'm leaving that communication wanting more. And you're leaving that communication with like, oh, I'm never asking that question again. Because I don't need to know all that information, right? So now we have this disconnect at work, and that's where in disengagement in my world, that's where it starts, is right at that spot. I all of a sudden I struggle with the leader. He's telling me more than I want to hear. He's not telling me enough. She's this, she's that, and that was my biggest challenge, was understanding that everybody was different. And when I was able to grasp that, that's when everything just changed for me as a leader.
I love that. And I love the teachable spirit that you exhibit in that, that you saw and you recognized, oh wow, this has to change,
right?
And then you did.
Yeah. And the cool part is it transcends, I should say, into your personal life too, because you go home, and if you're feeling engaged at work, you're going to be engaged at home. It's hard to work 8 hours and be disengaged and then come home and go, oh my gosh, honey, what are we doing tonight? Can't wait to spend time with you. Can't wait to whatever, fill in the blank. Yeah. Most people that come home defeated, it's really hard to turn that defeat button off and now engage in the family, engage in their community, in their church, whatever. So I think it's just a broader discussion than I don't like what I do. I know somebody that says he just says, I don't like what I do. My wife doesn't like what she does. Who really likes what they do? And I'm like, well, I do. Oh, well, you're an anomaly. I'm like, well, no, I'm not. Don't say that. Even if you look at that 1 in 4, there's still 25% of the U.S. workforce that enjoys coming to work. Now, yeah, there's days where I wish I was a cart boy at Walmart, where there's no stress and the pressure's not as great. but that it is what it is. So I think personally that to me is been my greatest challenge.
Mm. You are a leader, and every great leader I've ever met or talked to loves to learn. And whether it's through physical books, audio books, podcasts, they love to learn. Is there a book that stands out in your journey that you would recommend that leaders read?
Yeah, any book from John Gordon has been really
Mm.
successful for me. And I'm actually, don't tell him. I know he's listening. Hi, John. He writes business fables. So he writes in a
Mm.
where there's a story there, where it's the energy bus, no complaining rule, the carpenter. All those are really awesome books, and it's a story. And so I'm actually copying that, and my next book is going to be a story. It's a business fable, and it's about business blind spots.
I can't
And
wait to read this.
what?
I can't wait to read that.
Yes, I know. I can't wait to finish it. I'm stuck right now, so that's where I'm at. Full disclosure, I'm stuck. So there's a unique thing. It was easy. Well, I shouldn't say easy. It's easier to write a book about topic. It's hard now where I have characters involved and how they have to communicate with each other. So yeah, it's a whole different challenge, but I'm up for it, and I'm moving it forward. I'm excited. So it'll be probably I'm assuming 2023 is going to be our date.
Awesome. Well, I will.
So, but yeah, anything from John Gordon is just awesome, just fantastic, great positive guy, and just a really great message.
Love that. Often a leader will have a quote or a phrase that they've heard or read, something that really resonated deeply and becomes a part of their DNA. Is there a quote or a phrase in your life, in your journey that is like that?
Yeah, there really is. And it's interesting because if you want to be great in God's kingdom, learn to be the servant of all, right? That's the biblical verse. But if you just if you're not into that, which I understand, if you just say, if you want to be great, be a servant of all.
Yeah.
And I think that's so opposite of what you're seeing in, when you think of a corporate ladder, it's, I'll climb over, I'll do whatever I have to do. I'll knock anybody off the ladder in order to get there, So for me personally, I just think that, imagine for a day if everybody in this world served another person, just one simple act of kindness for one day. It would just be like, oh my gosh, it'd be so cool to turn the news on and it's not there. We have no news to report today. It's like, gosh, how cool would that be? There's murders, there's this, there's that. There's so much garbage going on that it would just be awesome for one day if it was like, oh my gosh, everybody served today. We had no theft, we had no nothing. It would be so cool. But our next home that's where it'll be. Heaven will be that way. So I'm looking forward to it.
Oh man, me too. A lot of those who are listening want to level up their leadership, or maybe they're not a leader yet, but they aspire to be. Do you have any advice that you would give them?
It's hard to really give advice because everybody's so different. And the advice that I would give you, I struggled with this question. I struggle with it all the time because it's like, what's your advice, right? And I guess that the universal advice that I'm learning is the more self-aware that I am, the more aware of others that I'm going to be, and then I can become a better leader that way. We all struggle with the zipper merge on the freeway where it's supposed to be every other car, right? I don't know why, but certain people in this world, who you are, you guys listening today, who you are, that feel that extra 20 feet in front of me is like, that's your space. You're not waiting for me. You're going to, which is fine. You know what? Just don't hit my car. But the self-awareness piece of that, I think, is really important. We talk a lot about emotional intelligence, and I can tell you this, if you want to make more, the difference between low EQ and high EQ statistically, research shows is like $29,000 a year. So if you want to make more, get a greater sense of your EQ, your emotional intelligence, because you'll make more. You'll just go in places that you never ever thought imaginable. So your family will love it. Everybody will love you being more self-aware. I'll love it when you let me into the, zipper merge. So, but I just think that, if I had to answer it, self-awareness, the emotional intelligence piece of that is probably the best place to start.
Dave, I know our listeners are going to want to continue to learn from you and stay connected with you. What is the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, I mean, DaveMolenda.com, super easy. I'm on LinkedIn and always posting information there pretty much every week, come up with some idea that I'm like, hey, I like posting what are those called? The polls. Those are really fun. Yeah. Polls in LinkedIn, just getting the vibe of what people think, on a variety of topics. But between LinkedIn and my website, we're always active, and the Positive Polarity podcast, which Dr. William Attaway was an awesome guest. So definitely check out that. I think he gave away $1 million. I can't remember if you're still giving that away or if you already gave that away.
That was a one-time shot.
Oh, that was. Okay. Yeah, sorry. Forget it then. Sorry, just kidding. But yeah, so those would be the places for sure.
And your book on Amazon, Growing on Purpose. And we'll have the links to all of these in the show notes. So folks can follow these things, grab your book, listen to your podcast. Dave, this has been so generous. I'm so grateful. You've just been so generous with your time, with your insights, with the wisdom that you have learned over time as a leader. And I want to thank you for that. Thank you for helping our leaders intentionally grow today.
Yeah, absolutely. If you are growing by mistake, today's a great day to find something and be intentional about it, because you feel so much better and you look back and it's just, if you need to repeat that path, that's the best part, is that you can repeat that path. And I've run into plenty of people that said, I grew by mistake. I said, if you have to do it again, how would you do it? They're like, I don't have a clue how I did it. So it's like, well, I mean, good that you grew. Next time, do it with a little bit of intentionality, grow on purpose, whatever your words are. But yes, that's totally out there on Amazon if anybody's interested. And if, I'd be more than happy to ship 3 copies to the first 3 people that say, hey, I'd love a free copy. I'll pay for the shipping. So anybody that needs a copy, please reach out to William, give him your address. He'll get it to me. And I promise I won't stalk you. I promise I won't end up in your driveway. Just a little book will end up there. So, and thank you for all you're doing, William, for this, leadership part. It's awesome to see where you're going to take your podcast.
Thanks for joining me for this episode today. As we wrap up, I have a couple of requests for you. I'd love for you to do 2 things. First, subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss an episode. And if you find value here, I'd love it if you would rate it and review it. That really does make a difference in helping other people to find this podcast. Second, if you don't have a copy of my newest book, Catalytic Leadership, I'd love to put a copy in your hands. If you go to catalyticleadershipbook.com, you can get a copy for free. Just pay the shipping so I can get it to you, and we'll get one right out. My goal is to put this into the hands of as many leaders as possible. This book captures principles that I've learned in 20 plus years of coaching leaders in the entrepreneurial space, in business, government, nonprofits, education, and the local church. You can always connect with me on LinkedIn to keep up with what I'm learning and thinking about. And if you're ready to take a next step with a coach who can help you to intentionally grow and thrive as a leader, I'd be honored to help you. Just go to catalyticleadership.net to book a call with me. And stay tuned for our next episode next week. Until then, as always, leaders, choose to be catalytic.
Thanks for listening to Catalytic Leadership with Dr. William Attaway. Be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts so you don't miss the next episode. Want more? Go to catalyticleadership.net.